When a grandma came across a huge stray dog, she took him in. But a year later, her neighbors heard a frightening cry for help. Edna took her customary stroll through the neighborhood park on a chilly autumn afternoon. Edna, a kind elderly woman, loved by her community for her caring nature towards animals, lived in a cozy home, adored with pictures of pets she had cared for. One day, as she walked along the paths, she saw a big dog near a bush, looking scared and unkempt. Despite his wild appearance and skittish behavior, Edna approached him without fear, knowing most wouldn't dare. In her long life, Edna had learned that an animal's size didn't determine its nature. If anything, bigger dogs tended to be calmer. Unable to ignore the poor creature, she approached him gently, noticing his pain and heavy bleeding. Kneeling, Edna reached out her hand in friendship. Surprisingly, the dog responded with a wag of his tail and a gentle nuzzle as if he had been waiting for help. Fueled by compassion, Edna took him in, naming him Doc, signifying his new place in her home. Bringing Doc home wouldn't be easy, but armed with determination and love, Edna took him to the vet. Swiftly, the vet provided emergency care, stabilizing Doc with IV fluids to combat dehydration and prescribing antibiotics to fight infection. X-rays showed fractures in Doc's leg, requiring delicate surgery. The vet also confirmed Doc was malnourished, likely a stray for some time before his accident. Throughout, Edna stayed by Doc's side, offering comfort. Her presence gave him strength. With vigilant care, Doc improved, but it took days before he could leave. Undeterred, Edna committed to nursing him back. She spent hours tending to his wounds, patiently cleaning and covering them. Edna also ensured that Doc received all the necessary vaccinations and a balanced diet to help him regain his strength. The bond between Edna and Doc grew stronger. Doc became a loyal companion, accompanying her on daily walks and even sleeping at the foot of her bed. The neighbors soon noticed the heartwarming transformation and couldn't help but admire the special connection between the elderly woman and the once stray dog. As the seasons changed, so did Doc. His coat became glossy, his eyes sparkled with life, and the once terrified demeanor gave way to a joyful playfulness. The neighborhood, initially skeptical about the elderly woman taking in such a large and aggressive-looking stray, was won over by the heartwarming tale of resilience. The story of Edna and Doc captured the attention of local media. Once a quiet and unassuming woman, Edna found herself at the center of attention, receiving praise for taking in the stray dog that had transformed into a gentle giant. As the sun set one evening, Edna received a surprise visit from her neighbors. They had organized a small celebration to honor Edna and Doc's upcoming first anniversary. The neighborhood gathered in Edna's backyard, sharing stories, laughter, and a delicious potluck dinner. Doc, basking in the attention, moved from person to person, accepting affectionate pats and treats. However, amid the joyous celebration, a shadow of concern loomed. Edna's closest neighbors noticed a subtle change in her demeanor. She seemed more tired than usual, and her smile, though warm, held a hint of weariness. Concerned whispers circulated among the gathering, but no one wanted to spoil the festive atmosphere. The following day, Edna woke up feeling unusually weak. Doc, sensing something amiss, stayed close by her side. Edna, hesitant to burden her neighbors, tried to go about her day as usual, but her exhaustion persisted. Unbeknownst to Edna, the neighborhood had formed a tight-knit support system. Concerned whispers had transformed into quiet coordination as neighbors took turns preparing meals, tending to Edna's garden, and ensuring that Doc received his daily walks. Yet, a cloud of uncertainty lingered, and the unspoken question hung in the air. What challenges lay ahead for Edna, the woman who now needed the same compassion she had shown to others? As Edna moved through her living room in the afternoon, a sudden wave of dizziness overwhelmed her. Her vision blurred, and then the room seemed to spin before her eyes. She reached out for support, but her legs gave way, sending her collapsing to the floor. A sharp yelp escaped her lips as she descended, and in the chaos of her fall, her head struck against the edge of a table, leaving her disoriented for a brief moment. The world faded to black, and then, with a groan, Edna slowly regained consciousness. The pain in her head pulsed with each heartbeat, and she realized she was bleeding heavily. A weak voice escaped her lips as she called out for help, but her cries were barely audible, even in the silence of her small home. Unbeknownst to Edna, Doc, the once stray dog turned loyal companion, sensed the situation's urgency. As Edna's weak calls echoed throughout the house, Doc's instincts kicked in. He paced anxiously. The smell of Edna's blood heightened his distress, and in a burst of anxiety, he charged towards the front door. The front door, primarily made of glass, shattered under Doc's mighty force. The sound echoed throughout the neighborhood, catching the attention of Edna's next-door neighbor. Startled, they rushed to their front door, only to witness Doc, usually a picture of coolness, running through the streets, crying frantically for help. Concerned by Doc's unusual behavior, the neighbor hurried outside, only for Doc to rush towards them. Puzzled and anxious, the neighbor trailed after Doc, who led them back to Edna's house. The shattered glass pointed a troubling picture, and upon entering, a distressing scene greeted them. Edna lay on the floor, weakened and bleeding profusely from her head. The neighbors swiftly dialed 911, urgently summoning an ambulance to assist Edna. As soon as the ambulance arrived, paramedics hurried in with a stretcher and necessary medical equipment. Taking swift control, they stabilized Edna's condition and meticulously examined her injuries. Doc remained vigilant, retreated slightly, allowing the medical team to focus on their work. With care, Edna was gently placed onto the stretcher. As the paramedics worked to stem the bleeding and prepare to transfer Edna to the ambulance, Doc hesitated, seemingly needing reassurance about Edna's well-being. Recognizing the dog's anxiety, the neighbor knelt gently patting Doc's head and whispered the words of comfort. With Edna secured on the stretcher, the paramedics moved her towards the waiting ambulance. Now calm but vigilant, Doc stayed close until his owner was loaded into the vehicle and driven away. In the emergency department, the medical team efficiently moved Edna from the ambulance to the hospital bed. Despite her fluctuating consciousness, she endured a pounding headache. Dr. Ramirez, the attending physician, promptly evaluated Edna's vital signs, blood pressure, and the severity of her injuries. Meanwhile, nurses readied intravenous lines as Dr. Ramirez ordered a battery of tests to unravel the mystery behind Edna's abrupt deterioration. During Edna's thorough examination, Doc, restlessly pacing at home, reflected the tension palpable among those in the emergency room. The neighbor who had accompanied Edna exchanged concerned looks with the medical team. Dr. Ramirez, renowned for his composed manner, remained collected. However, his furrowed brow and whispered discussions with the nurses hinted at the gravity of Edna's condition. As a result of the blood tests, imaging scans, and neurological assessments, Dr. Ramirez summoned the attending neurosurgeon, Dr. Hernandez, to join the discussion. Dr. Hernandez entered the room shortly after, his expression mirroring concern as he examined the scans and test findings. When he turned to the neighbor to explain Edna's condition, it became evident just how serious the situation was. Edna has sustained a subdural hematoma, wherein blood accumulated between the layers of tissue enveloping her brain. The force of her fall had ruptured blood vessels, resulting in bleeding and heightened pressure on her brain. Dr. Hernandez promptly detailed the treatment protocol, and the medical staff readied for a procedure to alleviate the pooling blood. The surgery began with meticulous precision, each passing minute feeling like an eternity as the medical team operated in flawless coordination. By this time, news of Edna's collapse had circulated, drawing many members of her community to the lobby, anxiously awaiting news of her survival from the surgery. Finally, the operation concluded and the door opened. Dr. Hernandez emerged, addressing the assembled neighbors with a composed demeanor. He conveyed that the surgery had been successfully draining the hematoma. However, given Edna's age, there was an elevated risk of complications during her recovery, necessitating close monitoring over the following weeks. In the ensuing hours, Edna gradually began to emerge from the effects of anesthesia. Confusion clouded her gaze as she glanced around the room, the trauma having momentarily wiped her memory, leaving her unable to recognize the faces surrounding her bedside. A hushed silence enveloped the room as the medical team observed her reaction, the aftermath of the surgery evident. Despite the heartbreak of witnessing her confusion, the community members stood by her side, their presence unwavering for the woman who had become an integral part of their lives. In this moment of uncertainty, a familiar face entered the room, escorted by one of the nurses, the very creature who had come to her rescue, Doc. As Doc gently padded into the room, a glimmer of recognition illuminated in Edna's eyes. The presence of her loyal companion, who had faithfully stood by her side through every trial, brought forth an overwhelming sense of love and comfort, surpassing even the haze of amnesia. Edna's expression softened as she gazed at Doc, who approached her bedside. In his presence, her confusion seemed to dissipate. The neighbors had implored the medical team to allow Doc to visit his owner. They argued that Edna's profound love for her dog might aid her recovery and the challenging post-anesthesia phase. Their intuition proved correct. The news of Edna's successful surgery quickly spread, bringing immense relief to those deeply invested in her well-being. Her recovery became a community-wide endeavor, with neighbors rallying together to organize fundraisers aimed at assisting Edna with her escalating medical and rehabilitation expenses. They took turns caring for Doc, ensuring he received regular walks, food, and grooming. Once a stray, Doc was now celebrated as a hero. His story of loyalty and quick wit touched the hearts of everyone in the neighborhood. A local artist immortalized his tale by painting a mural on the side of Edna's house, depicting Doc standing watch over her, a poignant symbol of unwavering devotion. Throughout Edna's journey to recovery, her neighbors stood steadfast by her side, offering not only practical assistance, but also unwavering emotional support. This provided her with the stability necessary to confront the uncertainties of her condition. With time, her memory began to return slowly. Meanwhile, Doc, now somewhat of a local celebrity, remained a source of immense joy for Edna and the community. The dog, once abandoned, had not only found a loving home, but also played a pivotal role in reinstating a sense of normalcy in Edna's life. Life carried on, infused with a newfound appreciation for the power of unity. The saga of Edna, Doc, and their community was a poignant reminder of humanity's capacity to come together, offer support, and emerge resilient from life's most challenging trials. Thank you for accompanying us on this heartfelt journey. If you found solace in this uplifting tale, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with others needing a smile. How has a moment of kindness or community support impacted your life or that of someone else? Until next time, take care.